Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 25th episode of the Masters with Harshith podcast. This is a very special episode for multiple reasons. First off, it is the 25th episode of this podcast. We've been running for almost a year now. Thank you all for your support, and it's been a wonderful journey so far. Second, we've hit 750 subscribers, which according to me is a great milestone for us. And if you still have not hit the subscribe button, now is your chance. Third, for the first time on the podcast, we have a panel of three fantastic individuals whom I should just introduce in a bit. And fourth, this episode is about one of the best computer science programs in the US, which has one of the highest ROIs and the quality of education. So, hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the episode. So, on my screen, I shall go the way I see it on my screen. First, we have Madhav. Hi, Madhav. Then we have Meghana. Hi, Meghana. Hi, Anshul. So, all three of them have graduated from UT Austin just this year. So they've spent 2 years at UT Austin, and I'm excited to hear from them, their experience, and what they went through. So, guys, let's just start off by a quick round of introductions. Like, where did you guys study? What did you guys do? What are you guys currently doing? So, just like in a sentence or two, if you could just talk about that. Madhav, do you want to start?
Yes, I'm Madhav. I graduated from IT Bhubaneswar in the batch of 2020. That's like the COVID batch. And after IT Bhubaneswar, I worked at Goldman Sachs for 2 years. And then I decided to do masters at UT Austin. I think we can go over the applications and admits and that sort of thing later.
For sure. Meghna, how about you? What was your background before your masters?
Sure. So I graduated from IIT Bombay in computer science in 2022, and right out of my undergrad, I moved to the US for my masters at UT Austin, and right now I'm working at TikTok as a machine learning engineer. So that's about me.
Awesome. Anshul, how about you? What was your background?
I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2021, and after that, I worked for a year at Microsoft as a data and applied scientist. And after my masters, I'm currently working at a stealth startup right here in San Jose.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So this panel has a wide variety of experiences, people fresh out of college, and there's one year and 2 years. So I think it's very interesting and to a lot of different people who will be watching this. Okay, so let's get started off by discussing of why you guys wanted to do your master's. So all of you guys are coming from the top universities in India. So what made you want to pursue a master's in the US? Was there a rationale behind it? Did you guys want to like study more? Did you guys want to explore the US? Did you want to get out of the country? What was it like for all of you? So maybe Meghna, why don't you go first in this?
Sure. Yeah. I think primarily I wanted to specialize in like a certain field. Like in my undergrad, I picked up a lot of different elective courses and explored different subjects, but I wanted to like take a focused area of subjects in my master's. So that was one of the reasons. And then I definitely wanted to explore the opportunities in the States as well. So I think, yeah, that was the reason for me.
Makes sense. I'm sure.
So I worked as a data and applied scientist for a year at Microsoft, and the work started to seem monotonous, and I wanted to explore more research-oriented areas in computer science. That's why I thought masters would be a good place to start. That's why.
Interesting. How about you, Madhav? What was that for you?
Yeah, there were several thoughts going into that decision. I actually wanted to go for masters right away, but it was again 2020 was COVID, and almost everyone was deferring their admits to 2021 or 2022. It didn't seem like a good choice to do masters at that time, and yeah, I don't know if work experience added much to the application. I think I wanted to go back into research as well. I had done research internships before, and just in terms of research, I think there's a lot more funding in US and lot bigger labs and more interesting work that happens in the US. So I wanted to get into that research as well. And just in general, I think salaries in US are better than salaries in India. So I had that at the back of my mind as well.
For sure, I think that's like a driving factor for a lot of individuals who move to the US, right? The quality of life and the salary difference. That's a huge thing. Sorry, Anshul, did you? You want to say something?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh, so in addition to that, I think it's very interesting that all of you guys have different experience, like different years of work experience in India. So I just wanted to know from you folks, like, do you think, sure, getting in maybe it did not play a huge factor, but after your masters, when you were looking for a job or an internship, do you think the work experience you had, be it 0 years Meghna or like 2 years Madhav, so at extreme ends, do you think that played any role in like more opportunities or more pay, or like, or did it force you to be in a field that you already were in? For example, like one issue I faced when I was applying for internships was, because I was a full stack developer back in India, most of the roles I got back were like full stack. So was that something you guys noticed too? So maybe Madhav, since you had 2 years of experience, it would be interesting to hear from you first.
Yeah, surely having a work experience will help, but only if you are working with a US team or if you have US contacts, especially if your manager was already in US, for example. That is a very strong contact that you have because you have worked with them directly for 2 years or like less than that, but that's a straight contact. But if your manager was an Indian and he or like if they try to link you up with a US person, a hiring person, that might help as well. But based on what I've seen in this market, it's quite difficult to get calls if it's not a direct contact. So work experience surely will help if it's the right kind of contact. Um, in terms of if you're trapped in the same area, I would say yes. Again, this market has been pretty difficult for fresh graduates because they don't have anything to show that matches the job description. So typically, what people do is they get into research groups and try to show, like they do research in the field they want to get into, and they try to show that as experience. That's how they get interview calls for such things. And even in my case, I'm right now doing an internship after I have graduated, and this is a research internship, and I could get it through going for conferences um, for the work that I have published as a part of my research lab at UT Austin. And after this, I'm going to join Goldman Sachs, and that was again through my contacts because I've worked at Goldman Sachs. So your work experience definitely counts a lot.
Absolutely. So on the other extreme end, Meghna, so you came to for your masters without any work experience. So did that affect you in getting or finding any full-time position or internship? Was that an advantage? Was that a disadvantage? How did you feel? What did you feel about that?
I think like if you do not have any experience, then you just are restricted to applying to like only the early career roles. Like you cannot get into the experienced ones anyway. So it then depends upon how many opportunities are actually available in like the early career roles. Because like if the market's bad, then you might not get so many callbacks. But yeah, I think then it's just like and in terms of like being restricted to one area, I don't think that's true for like freshers. It doesn't really matter if you do good in your interviews, you should be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Anshul, I think for you, it was that you were doing sort of MLE or data science stuff and you're moving back into that, right? So, did you feel like for you there was any difference? Because usually 2 years is what a lot of people come in with, or like 0 years, like that's the typical number. 1 year is a very interesting number. So, did you have that issue at any point in time?
No, but my experience at Microsoft definitely helped in getting the job I currently have, because you get some skills and learn some skills during a job which are quite necessary for the job you will apply for. So even if it's 1 years of experience, it's quite good to have, and it will definitely help in your application.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that makes sense. That makes sense. So I just want to know from all of you folks, like what your options other than UT Austin were, and like why you chose UT Austin. So the reason I ask this is because I think the first thing that applicants go through, the process that they figure out is, how do I shortlist universities? So since you guys gave out your background, your years of experience, what other schools did you guys apply for? What did you get into, and like why did you not choose to go for them? If you guys can just discuss about that, that would be very interesting too. So Anshul, do you want to go first for this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I had applied to schools. I had applied to Stanford, UIUC, CMU, UT, and I think UCSD. So these were the 5 schools I applied to. And out of these 5, I got into CMU, UT Austin, and UCSD. And among these three, between CMU, since CMU is like the top ranked school for CS, it's usually a good choice to have. But the fees was too high for me to take the admission into CMU. That's why I chose UT Austin, because UT Austin is usually fully funded and you get some stipend as well. And between UT Austin and UCSD, thought that the professors in my research area were much better in UT Austin than UCSD, so that's why I chose UT Austin.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, So I think what you said was very interesting. You had an offer from both CMU, UT Austin, and even UCSD, but you chose UT Austin, even though it is probably not as ranked as high as CMU for CS, just because the ROI is fantastic out there.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Meghna, what was it like for you?
I think it was similar in the sense that the other offers that I had were like programs where like I had to have like a lot of money saved up to pay for them, and that they did not usually have funded programs. So my choice was purely based on the fact that UT was, and definitely the research and also my the advisor that I had for my bachelor's thesis had gone to UT Austin, so I had some like first-hand experience coming in from him. And his supervisor at that time is still at UT Austin, and I was
Wow.
kind of hoping to work with him. So yeah, I think it worked out that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Madhav, how about you? What schools did you apply
Yeah,
for, and like?
yeah. I think I applied to around 8 schools. My safe choices were actually UMass, Amherst, but I got restricted from it for some reason. And then the other safe choice was UCSD, which I got into. And for moderate colleges, I had UT Austin. I had applied to two programs at CMU. One was MS in software engineering, and one was the MSCS, the main program. I got into the software engineering one, but not to the main one. I got into UT Austin, and I had applied for the terminal master's program at UC Berkeley. I did not get into that. I applied for MSCS at UIUC, which was also funded. I did not get into that. And I applied to Stanford as well. I did not get into that. One more moderate college that I applied to, I applied to University of Wisconsin-Madison. I did get into that. It was a funded admit. And that was a tough choice for me between UT Austin and Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is traditionally known to be really good for systems research. I could easily find 4 to 5 different professors that kind of liked my previous research internships that I had done during my undergrad, and it was very aligning as well. So that was a difficult choice to do. So I had contacted, there were only 2 professors that were matching kind of the area in UT Austin. So I had reached out to them, and I told them about this. So in fact, the professor that I worked with, Aditya Kela, was a professor at Wisconsin-Madison and just had shifted to UT Austin just 1 year before that. Yeah, so it worked out. Like he was ready to take me into his group, so funding was not an issue. At that point, I think it was mainly UT Austin is better ranked than Wisconsin, and the main thing was the city and the climate. That was the deciding factor for me at the end.
Absolutely. Makes sense. I think even Meghna, you were also mentioning, I think at some point that climate was a huge factor, weather was a huge factor for you too, right? So what schools were like those schools which you did not want to go for because of the weather?
Yeah, I mean, there was Michigan, there was CU, all of them, I think are pretty cold usually around.
Absolutely. Correct. I think that's also an important factor that people do not consider but regret later on, that they don't understand how cold it can get, or they downplay how cold it can get. And coming from India, our what do you say? We do not adapt that easily. It takes us a little time. So I think that's a very important factor that people should really consider too. So One of the most important things I think as Indians coming from India for us is how expensive the program is and how much it costs us. So you guys are talking about how UT Austin generally does funding and stuff. So I just wanted to know, for someone who's watching this episode, are there other funded programs which are good? So I think you were talking about Wisconsin Madison, Madhav. Are there other schools that also offer fully funded programs? And do you get to know about this funding even before you get in? Or is it that you get in and then you get an RAship or a TAship and then it gets waived off? So what was that like for you guys?
Yeah,
I
so I was applying mainly with the intention of getting into a funded program. That was always the intention. So I did some research. There is like really good Reddit subreddit, grad admissions. There's a lot of discussion that happens on like which program is good, how easy it is, what's the probability of you finding a TA or an RA. A lot of these details are available. So I was doing my own research there. And I saw that only some programs, some colleges give funding as a part of your offer letter. And the advantage to that is you don't have to, in your visa interview, you don't even have to show that you have this much, you have taken a loan or you have
Correct.
this much money. You savings that you're saved up. You don't even have to, so because your I-20 itself has
The amount itself will be lesser.
zero amount. And the colleges that had this thing were Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Madison, University of Maryland also had this, UIUC, MSCS has this. Yeah, I think these were the colleges that had it in the offer letter itself, as far as I remember. But places like UCSD, UC, I'm not really sure. I don't think UCLA,
Mhm.
but UCSD, Texas A&M, UT Austin, and even Stanford, like you could find a T or an RA. And the advantage with public universities, particularly, is if you get a T or an RA, you either have half or full tuition fee waived.
Waiver. Absolutely.
It's generally not true for private universities.
Absolutely. I think firsthand I can say that being at Columbia, nothing gets waived off, and your stipend for being a TAR is pretty negligible. So I think it's very important that it is very nice that you mentioned Stanford too. Even though it's a private school, the funding there is fantastic. The 10th episode of this podcast, we spoke with Shreya, who graduated from Stanford, and she literally had almost the whole tuition fee waived off. Meghna, I think you were adding on to that. So what was that like UT Austin for you? Did you know that you were funded even before you started the program, or was it that you got in for a TAship or RAship later and then it was waived off?
Yeah, I think it was the latter. I think only a very few select people who have like really aligned research goals with like one of the professors can potentially get like the funding offer, like like before even getting into the school. But otherwise, it's mostly like once you get there, you look for, and it's like on a semester basis. So like every semester you look for like an RA or TA, and then you fund your semester. That's how it works.
Got it.
Yeah.
So typically, do students RA or TA for the same course, like for all the 4 semesters, say they're doing for 4 semesters, or do they keep switching between the courses? What is that like?
Yeah, TA definitely you keep switching between the courses. RA depends upon your research. If it's continuing, then you might just like continue for all 4 semesters. Otherwise, yeah, however long it goes on to.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So were all 3 of your courses fully funded? Like, did you guys do TA/RA for all 4 semesters, or did you guys not do it for any of the semesters? Uh, Anshul, you want to go first?
I was not able to get a TA or RA in my first semester, but the rest of the 3 semesters I was able to get one.
Got it.
Uh,
How
and
about you, Madhav? So,
Yeah, I kind of remember this. Like when we were starting out in UT Austin, we had created a group of people who actually got an RA. We were discussing, oh, how does tuition fee waiver work? Oh, we had to apply for SSN. Meghana was in that group. I think there were around 8 people, I think, who got an RA.
interesting.
Out of like the 40 Indians that I knew.
Mhm.
So yeah, and you really need to have prior research experience that aligns properly to get an RA. It's not very easy to have that work out. And in terms of TA, the applications for TA had opened even before we reached US. So there's like a course registration that happens. Even that happens before you reach US. The registration opens, I think, 2 weeks before, at least when the semester starts, and even the TA applications open up. So it's not just CS TA applications. I think a lot of our seniors told it's very easy to get TA at UT Austin in the CS department itself. There's like a lot of openings. But I think we were a bit misled with that because I think their batch sizes were small because of the COVID batches. So they were all of them were able to get TAs. They probably didn't have to look for RAs even. So some of us were misled by that. And we had applied only for CSTA applications, and a lot of I don't think any incoming student got a CSTA position. But the thing is, there are a lot of other departments, like this maths department, which takes a lot of CS students to go for math TAs. In fact, Anshul has done math
Yeah,
TA
I'm kind of mad
2
to see.
semesters. And there's like astronomy TAs, there's like physics TAs,
Electrical and business school as well.
EC, and it's, yeah, especially business school.
That is
And the thing about business school is you have the same course every semester, so you can be a continuing TA. That's not the
Absolutely.
case generally with CS courses because they are only offered in alternating semesters. So even if you are TA for the course this semester, there's a chance that it won't be offered next semester. So
Absolutely. I think that makes sense. And I think that's a recurring theme I'm seeing in different universities. Students usually only target the CS schools, those who go for MSCS for a TAship or RAship. But in fact, you can do the same thing in other schools. Like, for example, you're at Columbia, if you are a TA at the business school, you earn much higher, or you're at CFA, which is a public affairs school, for a basic data analytics or SQL course, you earn much higher. So, Meghna, what was that for you? Did you do 4 semesters of RAship, or was it a mix of RA and TA? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was RAship for like the first 2 semesters, and then the second year I did TAships both the semesters.
Got it. So I think, Madhav, I just want to go back to the point where you said 8 out of 40 students almost had an RAship in the first semester. So, I mean, obviously the numbers can move up and down, whatever. But generally, in proportion, do you say about 20 to 30% or like 15 to 20% students get an RAship? And what is the proportion of students who typically, because I know you guys are like an extraordinary bunch and you guys like, did three TAs or RAs, but how easy is it or how general is it for a regular student attending UT Austin to get 3 or 4 semesters of tuition waived off?
yeah, so I don't know the exact batch size that we had. It's probably around 80, and in our batch there were a lot of international students, specifically a lot of Indians. There were around 40 Indians, which
Sure.
we used to hang out with. So we know the statistics with respect to that.
Sure.
And in the first semester, I think only, including TAs in other departments, probably 10 out of 40 might have gotten, 10 or 15 might have gotten either a
Got
T or an RA. But I think from the second semester, it's 90%, or 36
Oh,
out of
wow.
40 or 40 out of 40 have gotten either a T or an RA.
Got it. So I think from those numbers, I can just take a guess or an estimate that almost 80 to 90% of the batch who's at UT Austin, if not the first semester, at least from second semester, will have the tuition waived off.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
If you're really trying to get a T or an RA, you will get it for sure. There's a 100% chance from second semester
Got it.
that you will get it.
Got
Even
it.
from the first
So
semester, if you're very well prepared, because we were kind of misled. We were like, you just apply for
sure,
CST
that
and
is very easy, right? And how does this process work? So at Columbia, I'll just give you an example. So what we do is we have a portal that opens up for the CS school. You fill in your preference, and then you sort of email the professor, tell them that hey, this is my background, I'm interested, and then they get to give their own priority, and then it gets matched. Is it the same way at UT Austin, or is it a different structure? How does it work there? Yeah.
Yeah, every department has like an online application. So it's probably you just submit your details there. And there's some kind of referring system also, because some person might have
Interesting.
gotten both maths TA and some, let's say, physics TA. He might try to refer the extra TA position to you. It might
Got
or
it.
might not work. Typically, what I've seen is math department prefers people who have TA'd with the department in the previous semesters. That they get the
Absolutely.
first preference, even if you get referred. If you want to refer someone else, I think it's possible to refer basically. Every department has like online applications. You could also just walk into the department and ask about any open positions. Some people do that as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, is there a hierarchy of how TAs are selected? At some universities, a first preference is given to PhDs, and then they give it to MS students, and then it goes down to like the undergrad students. Is that the same at UT Austin? And you still have enough slots for almost all the Indian graduate students at least to get TAship? How does that work?
Yeah, there are enough slots for everyone to get TAs and RS. PhDs are guaranteed admits, so they are guaranteed if there's no funding in their lab from their advisor. Only in that case, they are asked to do a TA for some course, probably their advisor's course itself.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, their funding is guaranteed, but there are enough positions across all the departments within UT Austin to get a TA position. And there's no hierarchy of sorts. The only thing that's a part of the application is you fill in the availability because you are yourself taking courses, right? So it might conflict with the class timings for the course, and it's not necessary that if you're a TA you have to attend the classes. It depends on your expectations with the professor. Generally, people don't. It's mostly just TA sessions and grading and those other things that are your responsibilities.
So cool. Maybe you were talking about how you did an RAship for the first 2 semesters and the last year was TAship. Was it under the same professor with whom you did an RAship? Was it a different? Was that a course you did in your first or second semester? The TAship you did. What was that like for you?
So the RAship was within the CS department, and then the project had like pretty much ended. So I was trying to look for other opportunities, but like as Madhav pointed out, getting a TA in the CS department is slightly difficult. Most of them are filled up by the PhD students. So I looked out for like other departments, and a TAship in the business school worked out. And then the last semester, I worked basically with the same professor who is originally from the EC department, and he was taking the same kind of course in the EC department again. So I just continued working with him. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Anshul, how about you? I think you were talking about how you got a TAship at the math department, right? How did that pan out? How do you find it?
Yeah, in my second semester, I TA'd in the CS department itself. And during the summer semester, I got an RA with the prof I was working with. And in the third and fourth semesters, I TA'd with the maths department. So initially, I got the offer for the TAship in the maths department through a referral. So one of my friends had referred me to the department, and they offered me a TAship. And in my fourth semester, that TAship just continued over because in the maths department, they prefer people who have already TA'd for them. So they just so it continued on to the fourth semester as well.
Absolutely, that makes sense. It's interesting that all of you have such wide, varied experiences.
I think Anshul is a prime example of you don't have to put much effort into getting a TA because every time he did not reach out, he did not fill the online applications for any TA. And he usually ends up getting the TA on the first class day, which is like the day you have to pay the tuition. And
that's typical Anshul. That's so typical Anshul.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, you should probably there's a lot of opportunities or a lot of openings. So eventually you do take a lot of stress, but by the last day
it works out. Absolutely. So the first time you're getting a TAship, for RAship, I can imagine that you have projects or you've done research already in a particular field. But for TAship, how do you prove to the professor that your experience is that you show them that I've done the same course, the syllabus is the same undergrad, and I got a good grade? Is that how you show it, or do they? How does it generally work for you folks there?
Yeah, you need to show the coursework that you have done in your undergrad, and it matches the coursework that is going to be taught in the masters. So you need to have done some kind of coursework to be able to TA for that thing. or show some
Great.
achievements in a particular field that you have either done this or cleared some exam that you can teach the class properly.
Makes sense. Makes
And there
sense.
are some courses like astronomy and all those courses, and in those courses it's usually general knowledge or just going attending the classes, and you will be able to TA the class. So in those classes I don't think they check for your background requirements that much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how easy is it for CS folks to get a TAship outside the school? Do they give preference? I think guys were talking about how math schools probably prefer math students only. So is there something that's like something that happens of that sort, or is it just based on merit, regardless of which school you are from, you can TA in any school? Um, I think Anshul, again, since you TA'd in the math department.
Yeah, I mean they will. So if you are in the same department, then you will be given preference. But if you are from some other department, then it doesn't matter. So it's equal if it's either a CS student or a stat student. You will need to show some kind of
Got
coursework
it.
that you have done that will match the course you will teach. So
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And I would say it's not very merit based. It's more about the
Hmm.
time you reach out or the time you apply and your luck and a lot of those things. Yeah, there are enough openings, so you would end up getting something. But I don't think they check background that much. It's more
As
about
much.
they are looking and you were there.
So do you also email the professor like how I was saying we do at Columbia? So once we fill out the form, we tell them that, hey, I've applied for a TAship and this is what I've done, and can you please consider me? Is that what happens at UT Austin too?
Business school, for example, doesn't have an online application. You have to reach out to the professors.
Interesting. So Meghna, what was that like for you? So since these were like these people like an engineer or allied schools, you were doing in the business school. What was that like for you, and what kind of course was it, and how did that work?
Yeah, I think I was basically just checking out the list of courses, so that's accessible. You can just look for like which schools offering what courses, and then there was a data science course, and that's pretty much like very relevant to CS. So I thought of reaching out to that professor, and he was indeed looking for a TA at that time, and that worked out. So yeah, and even when it was like with the EC department in the following semester, it was the same data science course, which had like a very similar structure because the same professor was co-teaching it. So yeah, I think it was still a CS course, even though it was in like the business department.
Absolutely. I think typically what we see, even at a lot of our schools have spoken to people about, is that the lowest hanging fruits are data science, basic SQL, Python. That's like taught across different schools for like different use cases. But at the end of the day, they're using the same technology. So that's interesting as well to hear and understand. So I think going on to the next, the part of the discussion is what is the course structure like at UT Austin? How many semesters is it? How many courses do you have to take? Are there electives? Are there specializations? What is that broad thing like? Meghna, do you want to start?
Sure. So like for the master's program, you have two options between like the coursework and the thesis option. And either way, you have to finish 10 courses or like 30 credits, what they call it. And then there is like three areas in which you have to mandatorily take one course each. There's like the system side, there's the application side, and there's theory. So you have to do one course each from this. And then there are like five courses which are like your choice electives. You have to finish that core CS courses. And then there's two other courses which is like a minor course out of CS department. Any course that is like can be counted as a minor course. So that was basically it. Yeah. And those five courses was where you would essentially customize your master's program as per your interest. Yeah.
Got it. So when you're applying for your program itself, did you have to declare whether you're doing a thesis or a non-thesis based track? And do you think that had any weightage if on your application?
Oh, no, definitely not. I think a lot of people figured it out eventually. So, like the last two semesters, basically your second year is when you have to decide whether you're going to do a thesis, because it then counts as one of your course, and then essentially you would not have to do five, and you would just have to do three plus two thesis courses. So, yeah, I think like if your research going well, if you're probably working on that in the first year, then you would be more confident about going with a thesis option, and that would like work out for you. But definitely not immediately when you're starting out, unless you're like super determined. Yeah.
For sure. And do you have specializations? Like at Columbia, we do have tracks, as they're called. So, like you mentioning, you have three broad categories, and you need to, if you're from a particular track, you pick more courses from that particular uh, thing.
The tracks are just for like finishing the requirement courses, but
Got it.
it's not essentially like any tag to your master's degree. So there's no like track per se. Everyone's like graduating in computer science.
Got it. Got it. And did you guys have any interesting experience, Madhav or Anshul, in the whole thing?
Mm. Three of us, we did not take the thesis option.
Okay.
We
Interesting.
did courses, and we do have to do a total of 10 courses, but we end up doing 12 because it's four semesters, and three courses are needed every semester for you to get
Oh,
funding. So it's like a
interesting.
requirement for you to maintain your status as an international student and get funding. You have to register for three courses every semester. So you end up doing 12. But if you have funding, this course is free, so it doesn't really
Makes sense. It
matter.
does not make, so is there no option to do a 3-3-2-2? I mean, that adds up
Yeah,
to 10 too, right?
there are people who have graduated in the December semester after just 3 semesters.
Okay.
No one that I know from our batch has done that.
Mm-hmm.
What people typically do is they really want to just do one course in the last semester. They will have to pay for it. There's no funding. You have to do three courses for funding. But if they do have some kind of co-op that they're doing in that last semester, so they are okay with just paying for one simple course and just
Absolutely. Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think interesting question I think a lot of people have in their mind is the courses you took, were they similar to what you did in your undergrad? Number one. Number two, did you feel the quality of the courses that were offered at UT Austin versus say IIT Bombay or IIT Bhubaneswar were different? What was your experience at UT Austin like? I'm sure do you want to?
I mean, it depended on the course that we do. So some of the course were quite good. So there was one course called Advanced Operating Systems. So in that course, we had to read like 4 state-of-the-art research papers every week, and I learned a lot of new things in that course. Um, I mean, most of the seminar courses were like that, where you had to read like research papers every week, and the prof used to discuss them in the class. So you usually don't have such kind of classes in your undergrad. So that was new to me, and we also learned a lot. And there are also some courses which are like structured courses where the professor comes, teaches you the course, and you have quizzes and everything. So you have a mixture of both kind of courses, and it depends on you what kind of courses you like and what you want to take.
Absolutely. And you're talking about seminar courses, right, Anshul? So what are the levels? Like, so at Columbia, we have level 4 and level 6, and level 6 are usually seminar courses. So are there similar levels to that at UT Austin? What are they called? And as a graduate student, uh, is there a compulsion to like take a certain number of those seminar courses to graduate? I mean, any of you can chime in.
Yeah, so I think it's not there's a course code called 395T. I think most of the seminar courses they have the same code. There is no restriction on the number of seminar courses. Every course is the same. There are no classes. There's only distinction is there's undergrad courses which have two divisions, upper and lower, and then you have your graduate level courses, and every graduate level course counts towards your degree in the same way.
Got it.
Only one you are allowed to do one undergraduate upper level course if you want to.
Okay. Got it.
That's the only thing you can do. You can't, or if you do multiple there, it won't be counted towards your degree. But you are anyways and ending up doing 12 courses, so you're okay if 2 courses are not counted toward your degree as well.
Got it. So ideally, you would have to do 9 graduate level courses if the math is correct. Is that correct?
Yeah, so actually you only need to do 8 graduate level courses, if
Okay.
you are doing research and if your advisor agrees for it, there is a special course that counts
Got it.
as like research preparation
Mhm.
kind of thing, and that's also can be counted for 3 credits. So so that could be your ninth graduate level course, and then you could do one undergraduate level course.
Got it. That makes sense.
And
That makes sense.
typically, most of the undergraduate upper level courses might actually have more work in terms of more assignments than
Mm.
typical seminar style graduate level courses.
Got it. So typically the seminar courses, do they culminate in like a project or like a group discussion? Is that how you guys figure it out? Because in Columbia, we try to optimize it in such a way that we take courses which some courses which have a final exam and the other ones which just have a project so we can balance out our timeline. How is it at UT Austin? Is that any different? Is it the same?
Yeah, definitely a lot of courses are of the seminar style where you have to read for every class around 1 or 2 research papers. You have to write around 2 paragraphs of response on what you think is novel in that research paper. How does it compare to the previous research papers you have read? And then within the class, there's a rotating presentation that people give. So it's again students giving the presentation on the paper that they have been allotted, and it's an open discussion. Yeah, there's a lot of questions being asked, and students just chime into the discussions, and there are typically no assignments in such courses. There might or might not be a project as well. It depends. And there are some other courses where it's again very structured. There are around 6 to 10 assignments throughout the semester for that course, and there's like 2 exams, a midterm exam and a final exam. These won't have any for these courses, even if they have research papers, like the responses and reading them is optional. So
Mhm.
you don't really have to do that. It's mainly the exams and the assignments are the main thing here.
So in a seminar kind of course, what kind of exam questions exist? Are they like open book tests or what are they?
There are typically no exams. Anshul has
Okay.
mentioned advanced OS. That was like that was a mix of all styles. It had assignments, lab assignments, exams, paper reading responses, in-class quizzes,
Project.
and a project as well. That was, and we took that in the first semester.
Wow.
That and cryptography. That was a difficult semester.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. So, are you guys allowed to take courses outside the CS department and still get it to count for your graduate degree? For example, can you do a course at the business school and make that one of the 10 courses you're doing? Does that work?
The 2 courses, there are 2 minor courses that are allowed, right? So you can take from different department, but they just have to be graduate level.
Got it. Got it.
I
That
think
makes
you
sense. That makes
also,
sense.
and I think you also have to take approval from your advisor that you are taking this course and can this be counted as a minor course.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense. Even at Columbia, it's pretty much the same thing. So the next question is, I know this panel is filled with extremely brilliant individuals, but for a common layman, how hard is it to get uh, an admit for the MSCS program at UT Austin? How big is the class size? What is the background of students getting it? Anshul,
Yeah,
do you want to? Sure. Sorry, Madhav, please.
yeah. I think at UT Austin they count research experience a lot. I feel like I've seen most of the students who have gotten admit have done. Most of them have done an international research internship during their undergrad,
Interesting.
or like even after their undergrad, they have worked with. Uh, yeah, as in like for example, I went to Max Planck Institute, so in Germany, during my undergrad, and like I know several people who have done internships within UT Austin as well. They have done a research internship in UT Austin, either remote because it was COVID. For some of them, it was COVID, so they have done remote international research internships, and I think that carries a lot of weight going into the admits. Even master students do have. We are also asked to be volunteers in the admissions committee, like the first layer of
Interesting.
admission. So we do give this like a point system, and it's out of 5. And after the students, student volunteers have graded the applications. If it's more than a 4 out of a 5, which a lot of applications end up being more 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 than a 4. Um, there's like a panel of professors who then carry out the filtering. And what we typically see, and like in terms of grading, if people have done industry work at places like Microsoft Research or Google Research, I think that carries the highest grade. Um, it's typically the place you have worked at and your previous work experience.
Right. Is there more insight you can give as to the rubric? So you said it's out of 5. So for sure, Google, Microsoft Research will be number one, that you will get 5 points. But what are the other points dedicated for? What if you do research within your university, you don't publish a paper, or you do research at an international thing like you've done and you publish a paper? How do you guys, what do the rubrics generally look like?
Yeah, I have not directly worked. I was not a volunteer, but my friend was. So
Okay,
I was
interesting.
looking at these through his portal,
Right.
and he was primarily doing filtering applications for PhDs and masters as well, but mostly for PhDs. I think after your CV is the first, uh, the most weighted, and after that, I think would be LORs. Like I have seen some amazing LORs from professors at like UIUC. They have put diagrams and plots in the students' LORs to show that this was the impact of the student's work. He's such an amazing student. He can do great work at your lab. And if someone is personally vouching for you like that, that's like the next best thing. Um, in terms of, and mainly for PhD students, it's very important. I don't know if master students are able to get such LORs. So yeah, LOR would be the second one after CV, and then it would be your SOP, your undergrad college, and your CGPA. And if your CGPA is not good in your undergraduate college, you would have to explain that in your SOP, saying you were concentrating on research and showing that you have done good research, and to explain the lack of CGPA there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think another question that comes to my mind is you're talking about research and all that stuff. What if there's someone without research experience who's worked in the corporate for say 2 years, 3 years, who's done say a Microsoft or a Visa or an Oracle or something? Does that count for something? Does that get good brownie points, or is that just considered a 2 or 3 or something like that? I mean, do any of
Yeah,
the other
my
folks? Yeah,
application was very focused on research. My SOP also very
interesting.
focused on research. I am not sure
Right,
about and
Yeah,
Anshul.
even my application
right.
was focused on research, and even though I worked at Microsoft, I just listed the area of work that was research based in my SOPs and not the actual software development work. So I'm not sure if
Makes sense.
putting in software development skills would help my chances or not.
I think that also adds up because typically the whole point of a graduate school is so that people do dive into deeper research. So I think all of that really does add up.
Yeah,
So,
but there are students who have gotten without research experience as well. Meghna's roommate, for example, did mention to me that she did not mention research at all in her SOP.
interesting.
Or like she didn't have research experience. She had, I think, 1 year of work experience at Cisco.
Okay.
Um, yeah, maybe Meghna might be able to add something there.
Yeah, I was on the committee actually. I was reviewing the applications, and I do not remember exactly, but we were very specifically asked to focus on like research experience and like good research coming from like a publication and things like that. And I think industry experience did add value, but I'm not sure how much. It's been a while. But yeah, it's primarily research that did like most of the yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that makes sense. So what is the cohort size at UT Austin? How many of them are Indians or like internationals in general? Has there been an increase in the cohort size since the year you guys joined? Because easily seen 1 or 2 batches. What has that been like for you guys?
There were around 40 Indians in our batch. Uh, I think a lot of them might have deferred admits, and I exactly don't know. But in our junior batch, there were only 5 Indians.
Oh, from 40, it's like
Yeah,
gone down to 5.
yeah, um, yeah. I
Interesting.
think it's around 5.
Okay. Do you have any idea on what the current, the 2020, you guys joined 2022, right? Okay, 2024 is just now. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's an interesting number, interesting statistic. Do you think there's a reason? I mean, if you were to take a wild guess, do you think the quality of Indian students has gone down, or are the number of people applying gone down? Like, do you, if you were to take a wild shot, what do you guys think is happening?
Yeah, I think the number
A
of
wild
people.
stat. There is no right answer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think the number of people who are applying have gone down because of the job market in the US. So the current job market
Hmm.
in the US is quite bad. So I think they might not have taken that step of applying for masters.
Interesting. Interesting. Meghna, Madhav, do you guys have any other insight?
I think that honestly, the university keeps fluctuating their own intake as well. Like, I've seen a
Hmm.
lot of universities who take in like a lot of students one year, and then the next year they just do not admit any of them, like from certain schools or from certain like groups of students. So I feel that's also like an internal decision factor. But yeah, that's just like a guess. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. I think
Mhm.
that does make sense. Makes sense. So cool. I think let's like move on to the next question. So I think I cannot really ask you guys how much your program cost because you guys not clearly pay for almost any of it. So how much does a TAship or an RAship pay you guys in return? And do you guys end up graduating making money after 2 years? Because I think coming from Colombia, I really want to hear a no, but I know the answer is a yes. So I just want to know how. I think this is very interesting to hear. So, like, how much do you guys make in your tiership or ownership? Does one pay more than the other? Is it department specific? Does business school give more than the other schools? And is it enough to cover your expenses? What is that like? Meghna, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's department specific. Some departments, I think, but typically every pay ranges from say 1800 to I've seen it like go up to like 3200, 3600 if I'm not wrong. But that's like the really like PhD level pay. And then yeah, I think it's more than enough to cover your basic expenses with like rent and like the other living expenses. You could live comfortably in Austin for say $1,500 to $1,600. So like if you're earning anything more than that, it's like savings, and yeah, you could be coming out of your master's saving a little bit of money. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Madhav, Anshul? Do you guys have a different experience? So I think Anshul, you were mentioning about how the first semester you did not have anything, so you had to like probably pay for it. So did your saving up in the next 3-4 semesters kind of offset that? What was that like for you?
Um, I really did save much during my masters. So my first semester, I think our tuition fees is around $11,000, and the rent added was, and the total was like $20,000 for the first semester. And so I had saved up some money from my job at Microsoft, and after that, the next 3 semesters it was fully funded, so it wasn't a problem. But yeah, the paycheck that comes is usually goes away in that month itself. So I did save much
Interesting.
during my master.
Yeah, I think we all know where your paychecks went. So, Madhav, how about you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I
Did you
think
also not have anything saved?
you could comfortably live at $1,000 per month budget.
Uh-huh.
Rents have reduced in Austin. I heard from my friends that it's only $700 for a private room, and you
Wow.
could just have $300 for groceries and other monthly expenses. So you could
Interesting.
in fact survive with $1,000 per month expenses, and your TA typically at CS department it pays $2,000, and PhD
Wow.
students are paid $3,200 for their RA positions. And if your lab doesn't differentiate between masters and PhD students, you as a master student also get 3,200 per month. So you do end up saving like, I mean, if your not spending much. Like actually, you do end up saving $2,000 per month.
Wow. Okay. So at Columbia, if at TAship, each course like 10 hours, so you get paid I think 820 or $830 for the 10 hours. So even after like 20 hours, I don't think we we'd just be able to cover our rent. That's literally how much we can make at Columbia. So it's really I mean a little painful to be honest to hear it, but awesome. Um, so I think one of the next question I had was when so did you guys know you wanted to do masters even when you were in college itself, or did you guys like Madhav, you worked for 2 years, Anshul, you worked for 1 year, so I'm pretty sure Meghna's answer is going to be a little different. But did you guys like start working and you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this, I want to like Anshul, you were mentioning that how you wanted to do research itself. So was that what pulled you, and did you not think about masters at all as an undergrad student? What was that like for you guys?
So during my undergrad, I was not that focused on my masters. So I had done some research, but I was not sure if I would go to masters. But when I started working, I thought that research fields would be much more suited to me. That's why I switched to masters. So yeah, the mind switch happened during my job. It was not sure that I would go for masters in my undergrad itself.
Got it, makes sense. Madhav, how about you? Did you work for 2 years? I mean, you obviously said that you probably went a little later because of COVID and stuff. So did you always know that you wanted to do a master's?
Yeah. So I was targeting for funded programs. So money wasn't an issue, and if money isn't the issue, and if you like doing research, then it was a question of why not do masters more than why do masters.
Interesting. So Meghna, how about you? So you decided to head for your master's without any work experience, right? So did you ever at the back of your mind think that maybe having I want to work for a couple of years and then go, or not? Did you ever have that thought process in your head?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people have this question before applying, but like when I was talking to my seniors, they all just gave me the advice that if you're able to, if you feel you have enough experience to get into a good program right now, then you should just apply. And maybe you don't get in, and then you can just reapply after your work experience. But just it just makes more sense to like apply right away after your undergrad. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think
No,
it's very.
I completely agree with that, I think, because after having worked for 2 years, I think that I could or like, should have done it right after my undergrad. Working for 2 years did not really add too much value for what I'm doing right now or what I'm learning at Masters. That makes sense. So,
Yeah,
Meghna,
and
since you,
on this, I would
sorry,
like to add that if the market situations were good, like they were in 2021,
yeah,
uh, even people without work experience do end up getting the same salaries as people who came after 2 years. So it's like there's benefit in starting early. Um, right now the market is not good, so fresh grads are facing some difficulties, but typically has always been like that. So it's general suggestion to just start in US early.
makes sense. So that's why I'm telling people about the basic math, right? So you can work for 2 years in India, come here, and then start earning, say, like a software engineer two or a MLE two position salary. Or instead, you can like come here fresh out of your undergrad and start. The time value of money is basically much beneficial if you just start early in the US itself. So I think that's what I've been like telling to a lot of people, and that's great advice too. So, Meghna, this question specifically for you. So, since you came fresh out of undergrad, so did you know in your third year or your like in your second year that I want to do masters, so I need to do research in this particular field, or I need to have a high GPA? What was that thought process like for you?
Uh, I I think like I was doing research not because I wanted to do a master's, but because I was trying to like explore and like do something out of my coursework, and also it was like COVID, and like we all had like a lot of free time, so I was just thinking, why not just try something new? And but then somewhere along the way, especially towards like my final semester of my third year, I was making up my mind for a master's. And yeah, I think that's basically when it changed. But yeah, definitely it didn't happen in the other order. Yeah.
Does make sense. Does make sense. So, I think in addition to that, I just want to understand what kind of research culture exists in schools in India. So, are you are there like research fairs at, like, say, IIT Bombay, IIT Bhubaneswar, or how did you guys get into research? Or was it that you felt that I just studied a new course and this course is interesting, let me see what research papers are there out there, let me talk to the professor? How did you guys like, first get into the research? Because a lot of people, including people I know are very close to me, they ask this question to me and I don't really have an answer for that. So how did you guys get into it? Anshul, maybe you do want to get started.
So, I mean, at least at my university, what happens is that professors say that if you want to work with me during the summer, you can. And that's how everyone gets started into research. So during my first year, and after my first year, I approached one professor and he said, yeah, you can start working on this small problem. And once you start working, and if you like research, you're going to enjoy it. So you will keep on continuing doing it throughout your undergrad. And I think your second year internships are also about research. So you just, once you start doing your research, and it's usually the professors who reach out. So they say that I have this task, and is there anyone who can do this? And there are some students who will go and say, yes, I can do it. And that's how you get into research. And that's how I got into research. And maybe others can tell how they got into research.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because that was never the case in our university. Like at NIT Warangal, it was never that way. So, Meghna,
Uh,
was it the same for you? Did a professor? Sorry.
they were like something called as capstone projects, which professors used to give out. And you could do that. Or, yeah, I mean, the professors were always looking for students who would do some kind of research. So that was the case in our
Interesting.
university.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much true. But also, like, if you've taken up a course and if you did well in the course,
Hmm.
then you could definitely reach out to the professor after the grades are out, saying that, okay, I got like a 10 out of 10 in the course, and then I'm interested in working. Do you have more research stuff going on? So that's also one way, and I think that's kind of how I got into the research opportunities. Yeah.
Makes sense. Madhav, how was it at Bhubaneswar? Was it the same thing where professor said that we've got these opportunities, or like did you out of your own interest, or what was your journey like?
Yeah, so at IIT Bhubaneswar, I think internal research was a bit less. Um, I don't think there were ongoing projects that were looking for students that much. But as Anshul told, doing an industry internship in second year is typically doesn't really happen because companies want you to join them after like around 1 year. They give you written offer to join, right? So second year, typically what people do is instead of doing an industry internship, they do research internships in different colleges, and it might be international or it might be there's like a program called SRFP. So it's a common application for summer internships in IITs. And each IIT has their own application as well, separate, which is not common. So there was like IIT Roorkee had something called Spark. IIT Bombay also had, like every IIT has that. So you do apply to all of these things. So that's for the second year internship, right? And yeah, so that's how I think I got into research through these summer internships in second and third year.
Absolutely.
Within the college, I think you have a mandatory thesis, undergrad thesis that you have to do, and that's research anyways. So that happens in the fourth year. So if you are not doing any research internships, you can still have that on your resume by working properly for your undergrad thesis. If you do get a publication out of it.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, you know. So even typically for us, if even at NIT Warangal too, if you haven't done any research in the first 3 years, final year you have a project which is pretty much like a research project. So that at least that's where people get their hands really dirty. That does make sense. So I just want to know, so when you guys are looking for full-time jobs, do you think your university, UT Austin's brand name played any value, or do you think it was just your merit that helped you land the roles? Because a lot of times when people are shortlisting universities, they talk about brand value, they talk about location, and all those different things. So did you guys have more opportunities at like Dallas-based companies or Austin-based companies, or was it like neutral for you guys? What was that like for you, your experience?
Yeah,
Anshul,
UT
do you want to?
Austin,
Sorry.
uh, in US news rankings, for example, UT Austin is in top 10. But I feel like as long as you're in top 30 or top 50 colleges, college doesn't really matter. There are people who did not get internship or like have some trouble getting full-time jobs from UT Austin, and like there are people who have gotten internships and full-time from other colleges. I think it depends more on the timing and your luck. It doesn't matter. College doesn't really matter that much. Depends on connections as well. I feel like UT Austin's batch size is quite small, so the amount of people you have working from your college in out out in the industry is quite less, because I feel like a lot, again, batch size is small and most of the alumni probably is like more researchy and PhD students.
Right.
So that I don't think it helped that much compared to a college like CMU or NYU. Like you have a lot of alumni working, and they help out with applications, referrals, and
I think
that
it
sort of thing.
helped in electrical engineering because Apple Austin took like half the batch of electrical students, MSEE
Wow.
from UT Austin, and I think Texas Instruments and NVIDIA also did the same thing. So I think for electrical
Interesting.
engineering, it depends on the branch, but
Yeah,
there is
electrical in general was doing good.
I
In
think
any
that's a
college,
market. Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's like Texas Instruments came to campus and they offered everyone an internship. Like people already had like a backup internship very
Wow.
early on, and they were looking for betters. It's like people always had competing offers, and they were always like negotiating, getting the better offer. That's not the case with CS. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I mean that is an international dream, international student's dream. So that does make sense. Um, Moving on. So I think let's talk about where you guys are currently working and what you guys are working on. So UT Austin, 2 years, all of you graduated, and so I think Meghna, you're talking about how you're working at TikTok, and Madhav's talking about Goldman Sachs, and Anshul's at a stealth startup. So do you guys think that a lot of stuff that you learned in your graduate school really helped you or is helping you first crack the interview and in your current day-to-day role, or do you think whatever you learned in your undergrad was more than enough to do it? Meghna, do you want to start off on that?
Uh, it hasn't been that long that I can comment on this
For
entirely,
sure.
but for now, it does look like what I did in my undergrad was like pretty like good enough. But definitely doing more research in your master's always helps overall if you're doing like some kind of research in your day-to-day role. So that indirectly helps, but I don't think the concepts are directly helpful because I mean, you might not even remember half the stuff, right? So
Absolutely.
undergrad definitely though, because like the foundations were pretty much laid out there. So
Awesome. So how was your experience working at TikTok? Like, what kind of problems are you solving, and like, what is that like for you?
oh, it's been only a month, too short of a time to comment.
Absolutely. Fair enough. I think that's fair enough. Anshul, how about you? Are you using a lot of what you learned in your masters for your uh, in your job? What is that like for you?
yeah, I think I focused on machine learning subjects during my masters, and that's exactly what I'm doing currently. So whatever I did in my masters is being directly applied in my job, in my current job. So yeah, I would say that doing a masters is a good way, was a good start for the job, and it definitely helped me get this job because you have the courses, you have the projects that you do with the professors, and if they align with what your job does, it helps your resume.
Absolutely. Madhav, what about you? How was that like for you?
yeah. So since I'm joining by Goldman Sachs, I think it's going to be a similar kind of work, and my masters wouldn't really. I mean, there's no benefit there. But the internship that I'm doing right now at Bosch, it's a research internship, and I cannot imagine doing this right out of undergrad. It's very similar to the research I did during my master's, and in fact, I met the this research labs director at a conference when I was traveling for my research back in UT Austin. So it's very aligned, and yeah, it's like robotics and systems research I wouldn't have done right out of undergrad.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense. It's interesting to hear a mix of both the responses. So as we come towards the end of the episode, is there any tips that you guys want to give to aspiring UT Austin, UT students? Something that can help them if they're in the pre-final year or final year of undergrad, or if they're currently working and they're applying, say, I think this year is already done, so fall 25. Do you have any tips that you would want to give them?
Yeah, if they're in their final year and if they're working on their undergrad thesis, if they can get their thesis done under a very well-known professor in the field they want to do research in, right, continue to masters or the PhD at UT Austin, I think that would be the most helpful. I think one junior that we have among those 5 Indians um, has done their undergrad thesis under Simon Peter, who is a very well-known professor in systems research at least. He was a professor at UT Austin, now he's in UW. So,
Makes sense.
but yeah, he's very well known. And an LOR from him mentioning that this person has done her undergrad thesis under me, and like a publication that goes along with it. I think that's like a sure shot admit.
Absolutely. Anshul, Meghna, do you guys have any tips that you think we've already discussed a lot? I think we've covered a lot of ground. But in addition to that, is there something that you guys think would be important?
Yeah, I mean, if you are able to publish a paper during your undergrad, that's the best. That's the best thing you can do. Or some kind of research work under some prof, so that they can give you good LORs, is the way to go if you're in our final years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers what I had in mind.
Awesome. So I think the last question I want to ask you guys before I let you all go, I know it's super late in the night. Thank you again for doing this episode. If possible, would you guys be comfortable sharing your undergrad GPA and what kind of papers you had published in your undergrad or before your application, so that people can kind of gauge where they stand before they apply and kind of get a reality check or whatever of sorts. Anshul, do you want to go first?
Let's start with Anshul.
Yeah, I mean, my undergrad GPA was around 9.24, and I had one paper published just before I completed my undergrad. So I had one paper, and my GPA was around 9.24. So that's about it. And in terms of research experience, I had done one project under a prof and one second year research internship, and I had also done a industry internship during my third year. So that was kind of my background when going for masters.
Makes sense. Meghna, how about you? What was your GPA like? How many papers did you have? And what was that like?
Sure. My GPA was 9.44 out of a 10, and I had before applying for my master's, I had one paper published, and there was an ongoing bachelor thesis which was in the process of getting published as well, and there was an industry internship with IBM which got like a patent. So
Wow,
yeah, I think that was all the research experience I had.
makes sense. Madhav, how about you?
Yeah. In my case, I had done 2 research internships, both in my second and third year, and then I went on to work at Goldman Sachs. My GPA was 9.72, I think. And I think for UT Austin, you do need a 9+ GPA. If you have a GPA below 9, then you would need to have really good LORs showing the research experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's very important for people to understand that, people downplay GP a lot. They're all happy with a lower rate or a mid eight or an upper rate, and they expect things to happen magically. But this reality check is super helpful. Cool. Awesome. I think that brings us towards the end of this episode. Thank you, Madhav, Meghana, Anshul. I know it's super late in the night. I know it's a weekday, so you guys have come back from work and all that stuff. So I think this episode has added a lot of value, not just to people who are watching this, but even to me. So I have learned a lot about the program, the coursework, and what kind of students get in. So once again, thank you all for your time. It was wonderful talking to all of you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.